Oh, it is preseason hype time of year. Everybody's saying, hey, let's hype this team up. Let's hype that team up. Well, we're going the opposite way today. Chris Marler will join the show as we decide who we are saying chill the hell out on them.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. So free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of Locked On Podcast Network covering your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Welcome in our buddy Chris Marler. You know him as the host of the Fourth and Wrong podcast. Also, a big announcement coming very soon. Marler going to be joining another famous podcast group. We'll tell you about that when the time is right. But Marler, welcome in, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's been, I feel like, weird night. We have no College World Series or anything as of the time we're recording this. And, you know, there's just not a ton going on outside of talking season. So I'll be ready to get to media days in about a month, then get into the home stretch because we are, you know, the takes are taken. They're flying everywhere. I've seen it all over the social media.
They are indeed. And this is that time of year where it is hype season. All the preseason magazines are out. And, you know, this is hope season. Like everybody has hope. Everybody is 0-0. Even Vanderbilt, you know, their few fans that they have are like, we got a chance. We might win an SEC game this year, by golly. But as a result, Marler, people are saying some crazy things. And so I thought today we would kind of tell everybody to chill the hell out as the Texas Longhorns. My gosh, Marler, I've been hearing so much hype about them the last couple of weeks from a lot of national pundits, SEC pundits as well, and a lot of people cranking them up as the second best team in the SEC. Some even making a case for best team in the SEC ahead of Georgia. You want to start, or you want me to make my case for why we just assume the Texas Longhorns are one of the best teams in the SEC in the country?
I'll let you start.
All right, well, we'll start here. First and foremost, why do we automatically assume success from last season carries over, right? Like, we go back to how 2022 ended. Do you remember which two teams are ranked in the top four finishing the 2022 season? TCU and Ohio State. Last I checked, neither of those teams made the playoff last year. So stop taking, well, Texas was awesome this year. Clearly, that's just going to carry over into the next year. It doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes teams take a little bit of a step back. By the way, Texas, last time I checked, they're not playing a Big 12 schedule anymore. I don't see Baylor there. I don't see Kansas on the schedule. I don't see any of those Big 12 teams. It's an SEC schedule. And yes, it's an easier schedule on paper than the Oklahoma schedule. It still is a Southeastern Conference schedule. It's going to take its grind. Quinn Ewers is a good college quarterback. I'm not ready to call him elite. Yes, he won in Tuscaloosa last year. Great. But in his two other biggest games of the season, he threw two picks early in the Oklahoma game. You know, you could argue it cost him the game. Yes, he led them on a touchdown drive late, or field goal drive late, but then Oklahoma answered. And he played like crap for 3 quarters against Washington in the playoff game. Arguably, that's the biggest game of the year. And yeah, he turned it on late in the fourth quarter, but it was too little too late. I'm not, you know, buying the hype that he's the best quarterback. Like, people are like, oh, you know, mock draft next year, he could be the top quarterback taken. I'm not buying that. And the other part of it is, look, I like Steve Sarkisian, but I don't know if he's an elite level coach. Look at his track record. When he was at Washington, his best season was 8-4. When he was at USC, his best season was 9-4. At Texas, prior to last year, his best year was 8-5. Right. Last year he went 12-2, but to me, that's the outlier. Sark is more of an 8-win, 9-win coach. That's who he is. And we're doing this stupid thing again, Marler. We did it with Charlie Strong. We did it with, well, maybe not so much Charlie Strong. We did it with Tom Herman. Texas is back. No, they're not. They're really good, but they're not going 12 wins every year. And so that's where I say we need to chill the hell out on the Texas hype.
So here's my thing on Texas. I think they're going to be good. I think I said when NIL started, teams like Texas, Tennessee, Miami, Southern Cal were always going to be relevant in some capacity, right? Like, you might have terrible defense like you had with USC last year. You might have dumb head coaching decisions like you had Miami last year or whatever. But like teams that have a national footprint and have a long-standing history of having like tradition, boosters that are going to give, a crap about like them being good and have deep pockets. And then also like, like being able to tap into a recruiting hotbed, like right in your backyard. Texas has all that. Texas has had all of that for, decades. Tell me why all of a sudden, like we've sat here and like you made the comment, like, Texas is back, blah, blah, like kind of like joking about it. We've sat here for years laughing at them about how Texas is not back. They are like, we do it, however many years, it's like the Olympics, like every fourth year, something like that. We think they're going to be back and they never are. Texas is a team that has lost 3 conference games or more in 8 of their last 10 seasons in the Big 12. In the Big 12, they've lost 3 or more conference games every year, and now they're coming to the SEC. Why is it that a team that we have labeled, and deservingly so, as constantly underwhelming, all of a sudden they have turned a corner because they had one good season? I agree with you on that. Now, listen, I think the schedule is very, very easy and manageable. I'm shocked that they got such an easy road, especially in year 1 of the conference. Like, you look at the end of that, like that, they have a month-long stretch where they go at Vandy, they have Mississippi State, they have Arkansas, they have Florida. Like, that's a joke. I mean, that's a joke. Georgia at home, that's a good game, a tough game, but you get them at home. Oklahoma, you get them at a neutral site. Michigan's decimated. But I go back to what you already said. Like, and you look at the talent they lost. I understand who you're bringing in. I understand who you got playing or calling plays, because I think Sark is the best offensive mind in all of football and have for quite some time. But Ewers, who is a former number 1 overall recruit, and I don't feel like has necessarily performed that way at any point during his career. Like, I don't think he has a signature moment outside of the Bama game, maybe, in all of his years, or in the 2 years of starting. But you look at what they lost. They lost 11 players to the draft. Like, they lost every starting receiver they have. So, like, from a production standpoint, but you lost 11 players to the draft. You lost 2 first-rounders. You lost 5 players in the first 2 rounds, right? To put that in perspective, 5 players in the first 2 rounds, that's not only the most in program history, but it's also the fact that Texas hadn't had more than 5 players drafted total in any draft since 2010. The 11 total players they had drafted, that's the most they've had in 40 years. Like that's a lot of talent to lose for a program that has not done a good job of replacing talent and being able to have sustained year-over-year success. I don't see why we all of a sudden think that, oh, this team that, by the way, they're going to start playing tougher teams, right? In the last 10 years, they're 9-31 against ranked opponents. 9-31. Like,
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I just, Tavondre Sweat, Byron Murphy were 2 of the best defensive leaders you could have. They're both gone. Not to say they can't replace these guys, but you lose Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell. These guys are 1st and 2nd round picks. You lose J.T. Sanders, tight end. Like, you've replaced them, but nothing says it's a guarantee that Isaiah Bond and Amari Niblack and Silas Bolden and Matthew Golden all step in and they pick up right where those guys left off. There's a big C word. It's called chemistry. You got to develop it with your quarterback. Mitchell and those guys last year, Xavier Worthy, they had that with Quinn Ewers, and some of it developed.
Worthy had also been there for 3 years.
Yeah, and some of it developed as the year went along. I had one Texas fan tell me, well, A.D. Mitchell had just gotten there. Okay, yeah, but like they quickly got on the same page. But dude, it's going to take a little bit of time to get this thing going. And right out of the gates, week 2, you got to go to Michigan. I get it. Michigan lost a ton. It still is a tough environment to go play in. Maybe not so tough at 11 a.m. or whenever they're playing that game. But right. I'm just think like we're just automatically assuming success from last year at Texas and Sark is just going to carry over. And I'm not trying to knock him. This isn't a dig. This is just a reality check of, dude, it's hard to win in the SEC. And yet we've got so many Longhorn fans go, oh, we're coming in there, bro. I don't know what you think the SEC is, but we're coming in to own this joint. I'm like, dude, you're not playing Dave Aranda's Baylor. Like, this is a tougher conference.
You've had only one season before last year. You had one 10-win season in the last 14 years, like excluding last season, right? So you've had 2 total. You don't have any like losing seasons they've had for this very, very proud program. They've had 4. They've had 4 in the last 14 years. Like, I mean, they've had 3 more, or sorry, they've had double the amount of losing seasons as they've had 10-win seasons in that program, which again, like, I think the schedule is very manageable. I think they are going to be good because they still have a lot of talent, right? Like, I do think we're crazy to think that, okay, Isaiah Bond, you watched Isaiah Bond play in this league on a team where he could have clearly been the head and shoulders number one receiver, and never really was. Like there weren't a lot of Isaiah Bond takeover games. He had some big moments, but it wasn't like a takeover or anything like that. And now you talk about the fact that like you lose your 3 starting receivers that are like, I tell you what, AD Mitchell, Isaiah Bond is not AD Mitchell. Isaiah Bond is good. He's not Xavier Worthy speed. He's not AD Mitchell as a receiver. I like Amari Niblack. I don't think he's as good as Jatavian Sanders. I think that they lost so many people in very key positions, and it's very foolish to think that in this conference going in year one, they're just going to waltz in and beat everyone. And I tell you what, like the ceiling is close to the floor, I think, for this team, because the schedule again is very, very simple. It's a joke. I mean, like, I think they're going to beat Michigan, even though it's on the road, because it's going to be the first big game for that new head coach and everything like that. But dude, the last 2 games of the year are the ones I think that they're going to really see where Texas fits in this conference. And it's going to sound stupid, but that Kentucky game and A&M, going on the road against A&M especially, and getting Kentucky at home before, like the week before that, are you going to be able to be focused enough against a very well-coached Kentucky team? And then are you going to be able to go on the road with all of that hostility against A&M? Because those 2 games are going to determine if you get 11 or 10 or 11 wins.
That's my guarantee for the season. I've been saying it. I'm going on record with it all offseason. I think that A&M's going to treat that game like it's their Super Bowl. Like they are going to put everything. It doesn't matter what A&M's record is, whether they have 8 wins, 7 wins, 4 wins going into the last week of the season. They're going to put every resource they can. Remember 2 years ago when they played LSU and they weren't going to a bowl game. The season was dead. They had 4 wins. They were looking for their 5th win. Devon Achane got healthy. Moose Muhammad went off, had his best game. Like everybody had their best game of the season basically, and they beat LSU in College Station. They treated that game like it was the biggest game of the year. They're going to do that with this game. Both teams freaking sing about each other. A&M sings Salt Varsity's horns off. The eyes of Texas are upon you. They say goodbye to A&M, or rather Texas Fight, the other song. But regardless, like both these teams hate each other so much. A&M's going to put everything they have into winning that game. And I got them at 9-3, Marler. Like the Oklahoma game, that has been a one-sided rivalry.
Very much so.
For much of the last 15, 20 years. I got them losing to Georgia at home. I get it's in Austin, but like Georgia, I just don't think anybody's stopping. And then if they lose that A&M game to finish out the season, they're going to go 9-3. They'll miss the playoff. It's any other year at Texas. That's a good year, but it's not great. You're not elite. Texas is not back yet. So as we try to wrap up this topic here, we say, chill the hell out. Give me your final thought there.
So the final thought I'll say is, and the one thing about the SEC that no matter who you are, there's always a team or like a moment or a weekend where it's like, like no matter how great a team, look at Georgia from 2 years ago. There's always one weekend where it's like you're going to have to go out there and escape against a team that has probably no business being on the field against you, right? But that Mizzou Georgia game from 2 years ago, Mizzou was like a 24 or 26.5 point underdog. Georgia went down to the wire with them. You look at some of these years with Bama and some of like the close games they've had. Arkansas in 2014 is one that comes to mind. Or a couple times with Mississippi State, like things like that, like 2017 against Mississippi State. There's moments like that that'll happen. And now you're talking about like so who on this schedule? Because we look at it and it's like, all right, Michigan, that's a big marquee helmet matchup, but they'll probably win. Oklahoma, Georgia back to back, and then who else is going to beat them? We don't know how good Florida can be. We don't know what Arkansas is going to look like, really. We just have this assumption that, they're not going to be any good. But like this is a team that is 9-31 against ranked opponents in the last 10 years and has not proven they can stack seasons. I just think that them coming into the league with, and maybe it's probably just their fans more than anything being the loudest, the lack of respect I think that they have for their opponents and what they're walking into is very, very loud and very, very bold.
And I'll just add this as one more thought here. They do play Mississippi State. It is in Austin, and Mississippi State's in shambles right now. But I'll have to look it up. Did Blake Shapen ever play well against Texas? I'd have to go look that back up.
I have no idea.
But 2, Jeff Lebby was the OC at Oklahoma last year. Called the plays on a game-winning drive to go beat Texas in that rivalry game, 34-30, touchdown to Nick Anderson. Like, I'm just saying, Lebby's kind of been there before. Like, don't be shocked if they're in that game. Now, the final score may be 63-60 or something, but Like, just saying, that's another potential pitfall. It's the SEC.
Yeah.
This is big boy football. All right, more Locked On SEC when we come back, and I'm going to give you another team I think we should chill the hell out on. More Locked On SEC coming here in just a sec. But first, I want to remind you guys this episode is presented to you by our friends over at the Game Time app. And look, Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time is going to take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets or whatever it is you're looking for. They got last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sporting events, concerts, whatever it is. They've got the zone deals. You save even more when you just choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats for you. My favorite option, the all-in pricing. It's a feature you can toggle. It shows your total upfront. No surprise fees, no add-ons. That's the total you're going to pay when you choose all-in pricing. And the other part, seat views. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. I was just at a concert this past weekend, a big column right there in the middle of my view. You're going to know where those columns and things are, obstructed view, on the Game Time app before you buy the tickets. Go download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off. Download Game Time today. It is last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed on the Game Time app. All right, we jump back into it with our buddy Chris Marler. We are talking all things college football, and again, hype season. Who needs to, say it with me again, chill the hell out? Where's my graphic? There it is. Chill the hell out. And we need to get to this. Marler, I want to hear if you got a second team that we need to chill out on. I'm going to jump on this one. And again, this isn't a criticism. I know fans are going to jump in the comments on YouTube and say, oh, stop hating on our team, whatever. It's the Ole Miss Rebels. Look, Lane Kiffin is making $9 million a year. Lane Kiffin. Right. Lane Kiffin is a $9 million head coach. Dude. Things I never thought I'd say in my life. The same guy who left Tennessee after 1 year. He was fired.
Remember how much people hated him? I mean, he was the most hated person. And dude, I distinctly remember putting on Facebook, this is how long ago this was, when he became the OC at Bama. Somebody asked me how I felt about it, and I said it would be like if that jerk, that's not what I said, but for PG purposes, that jerk British commander in the Patriot just switched sides in the middle of the war and started fighting for the U.S. That's how I would have felt. And now he's like loved by everyone.
Yeah, look, he's likable. He's a little odd at times, a little standoffish, but he had to recoup his image as an OC at Alabama. I mean, that's what it took for him to get back on the right path. Look, in 4 seasons at Ole Miss, he has been great. Don't get me wrong. 34-15 overall, 20-13 in the SEC, 2 double-digit win seasons. But to me, Marler, that is the ceiling at Ole Miss. Ole Miss doesn't win championships in football. They've never been to Atlanta and competed for it, never even played for an SEC championship. But now we're to believe that Lane Kiffin, who's always the bridesmaid, never the bride, is going to take Ole Miss to new heights. I like Jackson Dart. I like the pieces they added in the portal. But Marler, they lost arguably the best player on their roster in Quinshon Judkins. Ole Miss fans can poo-poo it all they want. I've seen them all say, oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, yeah, we were going to get rid of him anyway. And all these excuses they've made. That kid was special. And now he's gone. And now I'm supposed to believe that Ulysses Bentley is going to be just as good? No, it's not going to happen. Their non-conference schedule is a joke. Their best game is at Wake Forest. It's a cakewalk, but to me, that doesn't get you ready for the season. You should be tested early, not playing a bunch of cupcakes. And they still have to host Georgia. They have to host Oklahoma. If they go to LSU, those are 3 potential losses there. And then potential pitfalls at Florida, at Arkansas, home against Kentucky. And by the way, a lot of these games are at 11 a.m. where you can be sleepwalking. That's why with Ole Miss and the playoff and 10, 11, 12 wins, I'm saying chill the hell out.
So I'm not on board with that one as much. I want to be, but the schedule is like, it's so manageable is what I'll say. But I was, because I think that Ole Miss and Mizzou are 2 teams that mirror each other in a way that's like, if you get to 10 wins, I think that you could be in. If you get to 10 wins and have like a marquee win, I think you could be in. Ole Miss does not get Bama this year. Mizzou doesn't get Georgia this year, right? And you look at like Mizzou last year. One of the things I always look at from year over year is like, okay, like turnovers, because that's like more of a luck thing sometimes, and then also 1-score wins, right? And you look at Missouri last year; they had 4 games that were 1-score wins, but it was all teams they probably should have beaten anyway. It was Kansas State, Middle Tennessee State, Memphis, and then Florida, right? So I don't know if they'll struggle with them as much this year. That's for Mizzou. With Ole Miss, it's kind of similar to what I said about Texas, and that's Lane Kiffin. Can you stack seasons? Because we haven't seen him do that as a head coach, right? We've seen him be good in 2023. We saw him be good in 2021, 2022, not as much. I do think that they're very interesting because they only return 3 or 4 starters on defense, but they bring in so much talent, right? I keep comparing them in Miami to like a Major League Baseball team after the All-Star break that thinks they can make a run. So they right before the trade deadline are going to do as much as they can to put them in a position to win. I feel like Ole Miss is all in to win this year. You get Jackson Dart back year 3 as a starter with Lane Kiffin. There's talent everywhere. And again, the schedule like sets up pretty well, but dude, they still get Georgia, even though it's at home. They get Oklahoma. That's also at home. But I just keep looking at it like there's no way that you're going to lose in the first 5 games. I think, right? The non-cons, then Kentucky. And then you talk about after that, like at South Carolina, at LSU, then you get a week off, and then Oklahoma, Arkansas, Georgia. I just think that if they can get to 10-2 and have some sort of good win, then I think they're in. But I think that like getting to 11, like I don't think they're going to beat Georgia. They could beat Oklahoma theoretically, but like a lot of people are overlooking that game at LSU. A lot of people are overlooking like going to the Swamp. We've seen Ole Miss teams in the past with a lot on the line and being in the driver's seat even to get to Atlanta that have struggled in the Swamp badly. I don't know if that happens again. It's another situation where I think that like I have to see it from Kiffin.
Yeah, I'm looking at man. Do you know the last time Ole Miss won in Baton Rouge?
No.
2008. I mean,
really?
it's been a long time, and it's over 15 years since Ole Miss won in Baton Rouge. So, we look at the schedule and we start to say, oh, schedule's easy, schedule's manageable. This schedule's a cakewalk for Ole Miss. I don't think they're beating Georgia and Oxford, and I don't think they're winning at LSU. So that's 2 losses right there. So now you basically have to run the table the rest of the way. You can't slip up anywhere else because 10-2 is the bare minimum to get in the playoff. They go 9-3. Again, great year, but you ain't getting in the playoff.
No.
So that's where I just say, like, again, and Paul Feinbaum, did you hear him on I think Kublik and McElroy the other day said it's a death knell. If he does not make the playoff, like this whole season is a wash or so. I was like, oh my God. Like,
I mean, I do feel like this is a year where like you are all in on getting to the playoff. And I'll say this about Ole Miss on a positive. I think if Ole Miss gets to the playoff, it's as close to you could get as like one of those exciting teams that we see in March that gets hot at the right time, can shoot like the lights out from 3. Because if you give Kiffin time to prepare and like what he can do on an offense, like I love that setup. I really do. And let's not take away anything from what they were able to do last year. I think that Kiffin's always found a way to get his best guys the football. It's one of the things he does best and probably better than anyone else in college football. But I mean, yeah, Quinshawn, no matter what the reason was he left and how okay with it you are, because he might not have been like a good fit in the locker room after his last season, that's still a very big chunk of production at the very least you're losing. They should improve on defense again, but they better. They better improve on defense because that's something that they didn't do great in several times against in year 1 under Pete Golding.
And for Ole Miss, by the way, like this thing might, to your point, like let's say they go 10-2 and they don't win the SEC, they don't play for the SEC title, and they play a playoff game. They would host a first-round playoff game in Oxford, most likely. And then think of this, the venues, the quarterfinals, they could potentially go to Atlanta, play in the Peach Bowl in the quarterfinals. The semifinals, they could either go to Dallas or Miami.
Right.
Not too far, from Oxford. And then guess what? The championship back in Atlanta. So for Ole Miss fans, like the venue might play just as much of a factor. Now I'm saying that they might make the playoff and they'll send them out to Phoenix or something. But
right.
Geography could also play a role in helping them as well. All right, more Locked On SEC right after this. All right, as we continue on here on Locked On SEC, we're going to get to our final segment of a sneaky sleeper team. But real quick, Marler, as we wrap up our first edition ever of Chill the Hell Out, did you have it sounded like you wanted to go Mizzou there a little bit on the hype.
I will say that the 2 teams that I think that could fall off the most that are ranked high now in the SEC, Mizzou might be one, but the schedule does set up very well for them. So I think that's a positive for them. They have a ton returning. Obviously, they have a ton returning. I already brought up like the one score games, all that kind of stuff. I hate to say it, but like the one that makes the most sense to me is Bama. I mean, Bama had the most overall players leave in the portal, and when they lose players in the portal, it's not like they had 39 players lost in the portal. I'm looking at the graphic right now. That's more than any other team in the conference by 8, right? Like you lost a ton of players, and it's not just them losing a bunch of players. You're losing elite level talent because of the recruiting classes they've been able to bring in, and they've done well recruiting. They got people still there and a lot of weapons, and I think that DeBoer is going to be a really, really good coach, and they could do some things really well. But that schedule is brutal, and they're going to Wisconsin in week 3. Then you get Georgia at home. Like you better pray that you're undefeated by the time you get to Georgia, right? And then you go to Knoxville. I think Georgia and Tennessee are 2 like definite losses, just in my opinion, with how good I think those 2 teams are going to be. And then you look at the rest of the schedule. You get Mizzou at home. You're at LSU. You get an Auburn team that I think is going to be like, way more improved, even though that's going to be a home game. And then you got to go to Oklahoma. Like those are games where if you got to pray that you don't lose one more game, because 9-3 is not going to get you in. It's not going to get you in. I think that you could look at Bama and they could go 8-4, 9-3, still be a good team in year 1 under DeBoer, all things considered. But like that's a massive underachievement, and considering where they are currently ranked, there's just a lot working against them that I don't think people want to admit.
Yeah, and that's what I've said too. Is to be fair, like DeBoer could be a really good coach and have a really good team, and they could still lose some of these tough road games at Tennessee, right, at LSU, and home against Georgia. But still, like the 9-3 won't tell the whole story, right? Like you look at it and go, oh man, we missed the field goal late, or we were right there, we couldn't convert the 4th down. But like, doesn't mean you're bad, doesn't mean you're a terrible coach. Just means you played a brutal schedule. I want to float this out to you real quick too, because somebody threw this out at me. Is I was making the case of maybe Quinn Ewers doesn't live up to hype. What happens if Jalen Milroe doesn't live up to the hype? I think we all think he's going to be good. He finished the season awesome last year, but what happens if he struggles? Like, where do they go?
I mean, I think they've got quarterbacks in that roster, that room that I think are good, for sure. Like, I mean, like Ty Simpson stayed. You brought the kid in from Washington who didn't look great in the spring game, but obviously I think that DeBoer was pretty high on. He spoke volumes about him even during their bowl practice last year when he was at Washington. And obviously this may turn out to be the biggest mistake ever. And I think we all know down here following recruiting who the higher ranked recruit is with the bigger ceiling or the higher ceiling, but like, he was okay with losing Julian Sayin because he was bringing in Austin Mack. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's, I think he feels at least a little bit comfortable with that. The other thing that's going to benefit, I think, Bama this year more than it has in a while is the offensive line can't get worse. It can't. And so running the football will be like, even a couple of years ago, like that 2021 season, they got decimated with injuries, losing. At the end of the season, they were down to basically 1.5 running backs. Because of all the injuries they had. I think they've got a lot of really good talent in that running back room. And so you're going, if you struggle early in the passing game and those concepts, I think they're going to be able to run the football.
Well, they added a tremendous offensive lineman through the portal by the name of Caden Proctor. I think I'm saying that right. Comes from, he played at Alabama. Oh, so they get him back. Okay. I'm just kidding. I mean, it's the weirdest thing. I was seeing like transfer portal rankings. They're like Bama, Caden Proctor. I'm like, the dude that was just on the roster, you don't get credit for bringing him back because he went to Iowa for a few weeks. All right, there you have it. So that is the end of Chill the Hell Out. Before we get out of here, Marler, let's get to a sneaky sleeper team on who you think a team is maybe flying under the radar right now that maybe nobody's talking about or saying like, they're not going to be very good. I'll go first, give you time to come up with your team, but I'm going with the Arkansas Razorbacks. I know, don't make a face. You made a lemon face.
I made a face.
I'm not saying they're going to, like, for this instance, like sneaky sleeper team. I'm saying like maybe 8-4, 9-3 is in play if everything goes well. I'm not saying it's going to be a playoff team, but like, I like the Taylor Green edition. I watched some of his film at Boise State. He came to Arkansas specifically because of the Bobby Petrino system and that offense. And he told him he showed him film of, Lamar Jackson and when he was coaching at Louisville, and that's how he wants to use him. Now, I don't think Taylor Green is that good, but what if he is awesome? What if he does live up to the hype? And I love the addition of Jaquindon Jackson, the running back, formerly from Texas, who was really good at Utah. He looked really good in the spring game. The big thing is on that defense. Can they get the defense righted? That's going to be the biggest question. And they've brought in some pieces through the transfer portal. We'll see how it works out. I think Landon Jackson's one of the best edge rushers in the SEC once again, and he'll prove that out. Some questions in the secondary. They added Danico Slaughter from Tennessee. If they can cover, Hudson Clark, is still around. So they got some dudes, a lot of seniors. We'll see how it plays out. All I'm saying is Arkansas could be better than expected. I think everybody's expecting like 6-6 type season.
Yeah.
What if they get to 8 or 9 wins? That would be a huge accomplishment. The schedule's tough, but they would have to pull off a couple upsets to do that.
I'll say, I'll give you a couple because I'm so long-winded always, but the one that's right outside that I think we're not talking enough about as a playoff contender is Tennessee. I think Tennessee's going to make the playoff. I think that they're going to be really good. They've got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They've got elite talent at the positions you need elite talent at. And this is putting a lot of stock into Nico, who has only one start in his entire career. And it was the bowl game last year. But at the same time, I love anytime a quarterback comes in and gets a year to learn the system, gets a year around hyper. Like I think we'd all agree that there's probably some time that he could have played last year, right? And they did a good job of being like, hey, let's not. You don't need to be in a rush to be labeled a bust, right? I think he's going to be very, very good. He's got all the physical tools. And obviously, like I said, like a year in the system, we saw what that did for Carson Beck. He's also got the deepest and most loaded receiver room that Tennessee's had, I think, in the last 20 to 25 years at his disposal. The ones that outside of that I think are going to be better than people think, A&M is one of them, because I feel like A&M, for whatever reason, they just feel confident in College Station. They've got a decent schedule. You look at also like you have Connor Wegman, who could potentially be, he's a former 5-star, could be one of the I think some people have him projected next year as one of the top quarterbacks coming out of the draft, maybe in the first round. You lost a lot of guys to the portal, but that's a team that underachieved for years under Jimbo Fisher. Like just from what we've seen Elko do already as a head coach, the turnaround he had at Duke, that's a team that had 3 straight losing seasons and 10 total wins in the 3 years prior to him. Year 1, he gets 9 wins, right? So I think year 2, he gets 8 when his quarterback's out for half the year. I think that he's going to do like a really good job, and they get a chance to do that early with Notre Dame coming to town. Dude, in the last one that no one is talking about, and I love that no one is, Kentucky, like I don't know how high the ceiling is. The schedule looks very difficult. Carolina, Georgia, Ole Miss on the road, at Florida, Auburn, at Tennessee, at Texas. Very difficult schedule. They're going to get up and beat somebody they shouldn't. They're going to jump up, and it might be that Texas game. But Mark Stoops is going to jump up and beat somebody they shouldn't. And the thing I love most about this team is they are coming in with a chip on their shoulder, for one, especially as a coaching staff. 2, you're going to have an improvement at quarterback over the last 2 guys that you've had, I think, with Brock Vandagriff. And the last thing, you've got
better than Will Levis?
Well, I mean, Will Levis is a phenomenal physical traits guy and physical tools guy, but it wasn't like he was lights out in a lot of games. Like maybe his best game was against Georgia, where he just was a game manager, right? Like there aren't a lot of games you can point to. I feel like maybe the LSU one or the Tennessee back and forth, but like I think consistency, Brock Vandagriff is going to be a better quarterback in college than Will Levis was. But on defense, they return, I'm looking at right now, 9 of 11 starters from last year's team, including 6. They return 6 out of their front 7. And the only one they don't is a transfer from Georgia, Jamon Dumas-Johnson. Like they're going to be very, very good on defense and play very tough brand of football.
Well, no, and in this day and age of the transfer portal, I mean, look, Ole Miss and A&M are maybe getting all the hype, but look at the ones that Kentucky brought in. It's all impact guys. Brock Vandagriff at quarterback, Gerald Mincey from Tennessee slides in at right tackle. Jamin Dumas-Johnson from Georgia played on championship teams. He comes over as starting linebacker for them. So, I mean, they bring in impact guys, and you're right. I mean, the schedule is tough, but, I mean, look, who's more tenured right now? Most tenured coaches in the SEC, it's, Kirby Smart, Mark Stoops, they're up there. Like, Mark's been around the block. He knows what it takes to win in this league, and so we'll see what they're able to do. Tough schedule, but, I like it, and those are our sleepers of the SEC. He is Chris Marler, of course, the Fourth and Wrong podcast. I got it right twice tonight. How about that?
I'm proud of you.
Let everybody know what you got working over there.
Yeah, so Fourth and Wrong, we have a new episode coming out. We've been taking a little bit of a hiatus just with summer stuff and going on vacations and stuff. But we'll be back in the next week or so. We have a full off-season schedule with previews and everything like that for counting down the days until the season starts. But normally it is Monday through Thursday at 8 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, and then a special brunch episode on Friday. So we should have daily content coming out. And check out the YouTube, check out our socials and all that good stuff.
Awesome. I feel like there was something I was missing that I was supposed to hit on with you, but I don't know. What you watch on Netflix recently?
We watched Hitman last night with the guy from Top Gun. It was very weird. Very weird.
It was okay, but it's got like 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm like, what am I
missing? It did not deserve
here?
that. I know that for a fact.
I was like, everybody just consensus loves it, but also Paddington 2 had like 99%. So
The Bear?
Yeah, Paddington 2. Go look it up. Rotten Tomatoes, hugely rated. SEC coming to Netflix soon, right? There's gonna be a documentary series. That'll be cool.
I didn't know that.
You missed that announcement? Yeah, that was made a couple weeks ago. They're gonna have some kind of, I guess they're gonna just follow all the schools around and do like some kind of docu-series. We'll see.
Love it.
I'm hearing the working title is Kalen DeBoer goes down in flames. The working title. So we'll see what happens. Marler, always fun to talk with you, man. We'll do it again soon, all right?
Thanks, brother.
All right, that's Chris Marler there. Appreciate him for joining us. This has been Locked On SEC. Again, thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. For your second listen, go check out Locked On Sports Today. It is the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's available on the Amazon Fire TV channels app and on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today, streaming for you 24/7. All the biggest sports stories in the sports world. I'm Chris Gordy. You guys have an awesome weekend. We'll talk to you guys next week right here on Locked On SEC.